Shabbat Shalom all. Shabbat meaning happy Sabbath. We are on 1 Samuel chapters 8 to 11, the appointment of God's first king. Reading from chapter 8 verse 1, where Israel demands a king. And it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba, and his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes, and perverted judgment. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together, and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways, nor make us a king. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto Yahweh, and Yahweh said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people in all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. So Samuel's sons did not follow God as he did. They were going against God's law, which said in Exodus chapters 23 verse 8, Thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise, and perverteth the words of the righteous. Deuteronomy 16:19, Thou shalt not wrestle judgment, thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert the words of righteousness. It happened with Eli's sons, who also didn't follow their father, Eli, and it would be repeated between the kings and some of their sons. A good parent does not guarantee a good child. Is it because some parents are too busy with work of God to devote the required time to family, raising, or children, and the children live off the reputation of their parents without sharing the parents' conviction? What option do the people have for a judge? Maybe Samuel should have let God choose his successor, like God chose Joshua after Moses. The priestly line of Aaron was set, but not the judges' line. Continuing from verse 11. And he said, This is God. This is the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots, and to be his horsemen. And some shall run before his chariots. Verse 15. And he will take the 10th of your seed and your vineyards, and give to his officers and to his servants. 17. He will take a 10th of your sheep, and you shall be his servants. 19. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, Nay, but we will have a king over us, that we may also be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us to fight our battles. So God told Samuel to tell the people what the kings will do, but the people didn't mind. They still preferred a king rather than Samuel's sons to judge them or to lead them. Now when prosperity preachers and pastors demand payment for blessings of good fortune and call it tithes, are they not being kings over the congregation? These are the same pastors who preach not being under the law, yet justify their 10th demand from the people by claiming it as a tithe law. Now many such pastors put themselves in the same position as kings. They have congregations serving them rather than serving God, such as in bodyguards, chauffeurs, personal secretaries, or running their personal business empires. Chapter 9. Saul is chosen to be king, reading from verse 1. Now there was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zerah, the son of Bechorath, the son of Appiah, a Benjamite, a mighty man of power. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man, and a goodly. And there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders up and up he was higher than any other people. And the asses of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. And Kish said to Saul his son, "Take one of the servants with thee, and arise, go and see the asses." Verse 5. When they were come to the land of Zuth, Saul said to the servant that was with him, "Come, let us return, lest my father leave caring for the asses, and take thought for us." And he said unto him, "Behold, now there is in this city a man of God, and he is an honourable man. All that he saith cometh surely to pass. Now let us go thither, peradventure he can show us our way that we would go." Verse 9. Before a time in Israel, when a man went to inquire of God, thus he spoke, "Come and let us go to see the seer. For he that is now called a prophet was before time called a seer." Verse 10. Then said Saul to his servant, "Well said, come, let us go." So they went on to the city where the man of God was. Verse 14. And they went up into the city, and when they were come into the city, behold, Samuel came out against them, for to go up to the high place. Now the Yahweh had told Samuel in his ear a day before Saul came, saying, "Tomorrow about this time I will send thee a man out of the land of Benjamin, and thou shalt anoint him to be captain over my people Israel, that he may save my people out of the hand of the Philistines. For I have looked upon my people, because their cry is come unto me." And when Samuel saw Saul, Yahweh said unto him, "Behold, the man whom I spake to thee of, this same shall reign over my people." Verse 21. And Saul answered and said, "Am not I a Benjamite, of the smallest of the tribes of Israel, and my family the least of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin? Wherefore then speakest thou to me?" So basically Samuel was telling Saul what will happen to him, how he's chosen, and he says, well, that can't be because I'm nobody, basically. Chapter 10, verse 1. Then Samuel took a vial of oil and poured it upon his head and kissed him and said, "Is it not because Yahweh hath anointed thee to be captain over his inheritance? When thou art depart from me today, then thou shalt find 2 men by Rachel's sepulchre in the border of Benjamin at Zelzah, and they will say unto thee, The asses which thou wentest to seek are found. And lo, thy father hath left the care of the asses, and sorroweth for you, saying, What shall I do for my son?" Verse 5. "After that thou shalt come to the hill of God, where is the garrison of the Philistines, and it shall come to pass, when thou art come thither to the city, that thou shalt meet a company of prophets coming down from the high place, with a psaltery and a tablet, and a pipe and a harp before them. And they shall prophesy. And the Spirit of Yahweh will come upon thee, and thou shalt prophesy with them, and shalt be turned into another man. And let it be, when these signs are come unto thee, that thou do as occasion serve thee, for God is with thee. And thou shalt go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come down unto thee, to offer burnt offerings, and to sacrifice sacrifices of peace offerings. 7 days shalt thou tarry, till I come to thee, and show thee what thou shalt do. And it was so, that when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart. And all those signs came to pass that day. And when they came thither to the hill, behold, a company of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God came upon him, and he prophesied among them. Verse 17. And Samuel called the people together unto Yahweh to Mishpeh, and said unto the children of Israel, Thus saith Yahweh, God of Israel, I up Israel out of Egypt, and delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all the kingdoms, and of them that oppressed you. And you have this day rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your adversaries and your tribulations, and you have said unto him, Nay, but set a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before Yahweh by your tribes and by your thousands, and when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come there, the tribe of Benjamin was taken. When he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri was taken. And Saul the son of Kish was taken, and when they sought him, he could not be found. Therefore they inquired of Yahweh further, if the man should yet come thither. And Yahweh answered, Behold, he hath hid himself among the stuff. And they ran and fetched him thence, and when he stood among the people, he was higher than any of the people from his shoulder and upward. And Samuel said to all the people, See you him whom Yahweh hath chosen, that there is none like him among all the people. And all the people shouted and said, God save the king. So here we have Saul of a character where he's humble and didn't want to be king, even hiding himself from being chosen to be king. Another point to note is when the Spirit of God, which is called the Holy Spirit in the New Testament, came on people, or Saul, there was no speaking in tongues, nor personal edification. The Spirit of God resulted in prophesying, and it was for the benefit of the congregation, which is later called the church. Chapter 11, verse 1, Saul defeats the Ammonites. Then Nahash the Ammonite came up and encamped against Jabesh Gilead, and all the men of Jabesh said unto Nahash, Make a covenant with us, and we will serve thee. And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, On this condition will I make a covenant with you, that I may thrust out all your right eyes, and lay it up for reproach upon all Israel. And the elders of Jabesh said unto him, Give us 7 days respite, that we may send messengers unto all the coast of Israel, and then, if there be no man to save us, we will come out to thee. Then came the messengers to Gilboa of Saul, and told the tidings in the ears of the people, and all the people lifted up their voices and wept. And behold, Saul came after the herd out of the field, and Saul said, What aileth the people that they weep? And they told him the tidings of the men of Jabesh. And the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he had heard these tidings, and his anger was kindled greatly. And he took a yoke of oxen, and cut them in pieces, and sent them throughout all the coast of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, Whosoever cometh not forth after Saul and after Samuel, so shall it be done unto his oxen. And the fear of Yahweh fell on the people, and they came out with one consent. And when he numbered them in Bezek, the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. And they said unto the messengers that came, Thus shall ye say unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, Tomorrow by that time the sun be hot, ye shall have help. And the messengers came and showed it to the men of Jabesh, and they were glad. Verse 11. And it was so on the morrow that Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the host in the morning watch, and slew the Ammonites until the heat of the day. And it came to pass that they which remained were scattered, so that 2 of them were not left together. Verse 14. Then said Samuel to the people, Come and let us go to Gilgal and renew the kingdom there. And all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before Yahweh in Gilgal. And there they sacrificed sacrifices of peace offerings before Yahweh. And there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. So we see how God is working, the same way he worked with Samson. The Spirit of God came on Saul, and he was able to carry out God's wishes. The history now has gone from Moses through judges and now on to kings. All the leaders of the congregation of Israel, later in the New Testament, as I said, called the church. The leadership leadership will remain via kings until the last king and Messiah comes in Yeshua and sets up a new kingdom. This will be prophesied in the book of Daniel chapter 2, I believe. Now, though God claims they rejected his leadership, he continues to respond to their cries and lead them via a king. He never forgets his covenant to Abraham, nor the love for his people, for his firstborn son, Israel. Exodus chapter 4 verse 22 reads, "And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, Thus saith Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn." So Father taking care of his son, irrespective of his son being disobedient, but as we are told, who God loves, he chastises as a father chastises his son. Shalom, until tomorrow, God willing.